Hi and welcome to your Wilcom Embroidery Studio 2025 journey. Over the next 14 days, I'm going to walk you through your Wilcom Embroidery Studio experience. We're going to touch on the software user interface, give you a tour of exactly what Embroidery Studio is, and we're going to dive deeper on editing, lettering, plus using your designs and a whole lot more. So let's get started. We'll start off first of all with a quick tour of the software user interface. Now I'm running the designing level of Embroidery Studio. So the tools and options you have available could vary depending on which level you are running. But in the trial, I'm currently running the top level. Now in the top section of the software, we have what's called the standard toolbar. The standard toolbar gives you common or standard features like starting a new design, open, save, export, print, copy, paste, undo, all those kind of typical functions you see in embroidery design software. And on the right side are a bunch of useful dockers that you can use while you're digitizing or creating designs, opening your color sequence, the design properties, your thread charts, and other options that we'll touch on a little bit more detail later on. We also have the size of your design, various display options like true view, stitches, outlines, connectors and functions, your grids and other settings. And then we also have your outline stitch types, your fill stitch types, and quality control settings like underlay, pull compensation, shortening, and other important settings that you'll be using while you build your embroidery design. Now on the left side, you have your digitizing tools. Now again, this will vary depending what level of software you're running. And again, I'm running the top level designing. So I can select, I've got lettering options, monogram options, plus all my digitizing tools available, and a very useful travel toolbar, which we'll touch on in a later editing video. Down the bottom section of your software is your color or thread area of the software. Now by default, it's got a pretty standard color palette that you can digitize with, but of course you can open the thread selector and choose your own thread chart, be it Madeira or whatever brand you happen to use. And you can also modify the background color of your design to suit the fabric you're digitizing on, and even display a product like a t-shirt or a jacket that you're digitizing that design on. Now another section of our software, which I think you will find very useful while you're beginning your journey in Wilcom Embroidery Studio, is the home screen. Now in the home screen, first of all, if you are on a trial, it will tell you exactly how many days you've got left of your trial. It'll also give you quick access to create a brand new design. You can open a design from an existing template that you've created. So for example, if you've got a design that you do all the time for a cap and you've got a standard layout, you can build that into a template. And when you start that design, you can select that option, grab that template, and you're halfway there to finishing off that job. You can open an existing design that you've got on your hard drive or saved away somewhere. And you also get quick access to your recent designs that you are digitizing or been editing. But an area that I love the most of the home screen is over here on the right. We have a news feed section, which our team are constantly updating with the latest hints and tips, plus really inspirational stories as well. For example, here's a great story of how Drew Nelson used some features in Embroidery Studio to build these amazing dragon designs from fantastic artwork, and also some 3D puff embroidery tips from Justin Armenta. And that's just an example of what is constantly updated in this newsfeed section. Now, if you click over to the blog, you'll also get a live feed of the content on our product blog. So again, some deep dives into feature tutorials, hints and tips, plus also interviews with some pretty inspiring designers as well. So that's a newsfeed and that's the blog, and I highly recommend you pay attention to those even after you've finished your trial journey. There's always lots of great content being published in there. Let's click back over to the workspace area. Now to start our journey, we'll kick off by opening up an embroidery design, a design that we've already created. Now I'll click on my Open Recent Designs option, and I'll choose this Van Gogh design here. Of course, this is a self-portrait from the famous 1889 painting that he created. Now, the first thing you might notice is when I open that design, the color palette is different. It's no longer those bright, vibrant colors you saw in that blank window. It's the exact threads that we used to build that design. Now, this palette doesn't necessarily represent the sequence of the embroidery. It could be doing the light color first, and then the dark color, and then the brown, and back over to the teal. These are just the thread colors you've got available to build that embroidery design. So you might go color 1, color 5, color 6, back to color 1, back to color 6, to color 8. You might jump around like that. It's just your palette that you've got set up, and you can configure that with the thread chart section, but we'll touch a little bit more on that on a later video. Now let's get a deeper dive into some of the options to view and inspect a design. Now, first of all, when the design opens, by default, it's opened up to be zoom scale of fit. Now, to fit will open up the design to fit in the entire window. In my case, it's zoomed it automatically to 79% because that displays the entire design in my design space. From the drop-down list, I can choose 100 to do 100%. Or on my keyboard, I can press the letter or the number 1, and it will show the design at 1 scale, which is what it will look like on whatever garment or product you're digitizing or stitching that out on. Now, some other useful view options are the display options here. By default, a design would typically load in True View. So I can turn True View on and off. I can turn my stitches on and off. I can turn my outlines on and off, and also my connectors and my connector functions as well. So you've got full control over what you want to have turned on and off. And by default, we recommend at least have your stitches and outlines and connectors turned on. So while you're digitizing, you can see your objects, your stitches within it, and any trims or jumps that might be occurring between those objects as well. Now, down on the bottom left corner in the color section, there is this colored cube icon here, which is your background and display color settings. This is where you can configure the background of your design area. Now, it's really useful to digitize a design on the color garment or product that is going onto. And you have two choices. You can choose either a solid color or you can choose a fabric. I'll change my solid color to be a darker color here. And again, it gives it a complete different look and feel compared to what it had with the white. Or again, you can go back and choose a particular fabric and choose what fabric type you want. We'll choose corduroy and we'll make it be a maroon velvet color. Now I'm showing my design on a maroon style corduroy fabric. Now my design is quite a large design. If I go edit and select all the design, I can see that my design is 162 millimeters by 200 millimeters high. Now, if you prefer to use inches, you can change your software with this drop-down list from metric to US imperial, which now changes your sizing to inches. So now my design is 6.3 inches wide by 7.8 inches high. Some other really useful view options in Embroidery Studio are your dockers. Your dockers let you dive deeper into the settings, sequence, and arrangement of your embroidery design. And they're found up here in the top right of the standard toolbar. The first docker is the Design Information docker. It provides high-level design information. This is the summary of your design. You can give it a title, subject, a bunch of tags and comments, which you can use later to search for that design in your design library tool. You have your design information, so it shows its height, its size, stitches, number of colors, trim, stops, and even details like applique, bling, sequin, and beads if you have them in your embroidery design. You also have your thread color information, where you can see the sequence of your designs. And like I mentioned before, you can jump between your colors multiple times because this is your palette, but this is the sequence that it shows on the machine. You also have your stitching tab, where you can see the fabric and stitching information for your design, how much thread it's using, how much bobbin it's using. And you even have a runtime calculator where you can set up your embroidery machines and work out exactly how long it will take to stitch this design on that particular machine. Other useful dockers is the color object list. Now the color object list is your sequence of your embroidery design. When it opens up, you can close up all your colors and see each color as they're stitching out across your design, or when you expand into that color, you can see each of the individual objects. And as you select them, they will be selected on screen as well. You can see what tool you used to create that object, what stitch type you used, and how many stitches are in each of those objects. And within this object color list, you can very easily resequence your design by simply dragging colors up and down. But we'll dive into a little bit more detail of the sequencing and editing of a design in a later video. Now finally, there are a whole stack of options and settings inside your Embroidery Studio, and you can modify pretty much all of them. To do that, you head up to Setup and Options, and from this dialog box you can configure all your software default behaviors. For example, you can choose how often do you want your software to automatically save. Mine is set to every 10 minutes. And that's really useful in case, for example, your computer crashes or you have a power outage. Your software will automatically save that design for you in the background to try to keep that up to date to your latest changes. And there's a whole stack of other settings such as closest join options, your hoop settings, the way you view a design, your reshape options, your grid and guidelines, plus the way you visualize and see your designs on screen. All those options are available. When you change them, click OK, and that will now become the new default behavior of your software. Now there are a stack of other features in Embroidery Studio, and if at any point in time you get stuck and need some help, your best option is to head up to the Help menu and select Product Help. And then from the top right, search for exactly what you need help on, such as lettering, spacing, for example. Press Enter, and it will take you directly to a list of options available. Select the item you want, and then the article will appear for you on screen. Now that you've had an overview of Wilcom Embroidery Studio, we're ready to dive a little bit deeper. And in the next video, we'll explore how you can open and use your existing embroidery designs.